Whoa, 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 stop the clock. Is the iPhone 11 actually $300 less than the Galaxy S20? What kind of world are we living in? Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here. Now, before we jump into this video, I wanted to update you on my podcast, GadgetCast. That is the podcast that I do with my buddy, Travis MCP. And I just wanted to let you know that we have a YouTube channel now where you can actually watch us go live every Sunday night around 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to subscribe to that channel, that would be awesome. And the topic we're talking about today here, the Galaxy S20, we actually covered a lot on that podcast. So if you want even more information, if you want to hear this voice even more, please subscribe to that podcast. There is an audio version as well, and it supports all the relevant podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I also want to mention one more quick thing, and that is that we are very close to 1,000 followers on Twitter. So again, if you want to get me over that threshold, just follow me on Twitter. There will be a link in the description. And also, I got a special thing here for my buddy Viper on Twitter. He said that I was not funny enough or savage enough in my videos. So for this video, at the end of it, I'm going to get extremely savage. You have been warned. Okay, anyway, back to the video. So 2 days ago, Samsung announced their latest line of flagship smartphones, the Galaxy S20 series with the Galaxy S20, the Galaxy S20 Plus, and a brand new Galaxy S20 Ultra. Now, honestly, I've kind of been going back and forth in my head on if I even wanted to make a video on this topic, but it really has stuck with me that these Galaxy S20 phones are extremely expensive. The S20 starts at $999, the S20 Plus at $1,199, and the S20 Ultra at a whopping $1,400. Whew, and I used to remember people telling me that the iPhones were expensive. Now, before we get more into this video, I want to put out a disclaimer. I am in no way saying that these phones are overpriced. I am in no way in saying that these are bad phones. I am in no way saying that these phones aren't worth your money. I am mainly talking about the smartphone market and Samsung's strategy, and also how the consumer feels about these higher end prices. And the main reason I am making this video is because I have been seeing this growing sentiment online from a lot of users in the Android world, and especially consumers of Samsung devices who feel that these phones are really expensive, and they really feel like Samsung kind of left them out in the cold by not offering a more budget-friendly S20 option. And this is really the first time that Samsung has debuted such an expensive flagship phone lineup with really no phone that sits near the $700 to $800 price point. And this new strategy really does seem to be coming out of nowhere, especially when you look at Samsung's strategy from last year. Just look at Samsung's flagship lineup from last year. They had phones like the S10e that I reviewed on this channel, and I found it to be a pretty great phone that retailed for $750. The S10e packed in a lot of the features that you would want with a flagship phone, and they delivered it at a compelling price point. In fact, Samsung's phone lineup from last year followed a very similar strategy to Apple's, with both Samsung and Apple having phones retailing for $750. Both were considered flagship level phones, and the features that they sacrificed on really weren't a big deal to most consumers. And even looking at their other flagship phones, the S10 came in at $899, that's $100 lower than the iPhone XS at the time, and the S10 Plus was positioned at $999, the same price as the iPhone XS, but $100 less than the iPhone XS Max. Sure, Samsung even had an experimental 5G option that pushed the S10 pricing all the way to $1,299, but that is still $100 less than the brand new Ultra version. And I kind of feel like the world's been flipped upside down, because being in the tech space for a while, I have always been told that iPhones were too expensive, and now we are looking at an S20 lineup where the cheapest option is $1,000. And if you look at Apple's latest strategy, they have a flagship level phone, I consider it a flagship level phone, the iPhone 11, which is the phone I recommend most people to get if they're looking for a phone that runs iOS. And that is $300 cheaper than the Galaxy S20. Honestly, this makes me feel like Apple has pulled some marketing genius sleight of hand trick where they had this strategy of, let's release the iPhone X at $1,000 in 2017. Everyone at that time thought that the normal iPhone pricing from there on out would be $1,000. But next year they came out with the iPhone XR. They put this 10 and an R name, and they kind of made it very confusing naming scheme wise, but they lowered that down to $750 and gave you a modern iPhone X experience at a much more reasonable cost. But to go even further, this year, they said forget the naming scheme where we kind of make this feel like more of a budget model, and now they dropped it $50 more. And it is the main iPhone. It is called the iPhone 11, the mainstream iPhone. And if you want the more premium $1,000 options, well, now that's designated with the iPhone 11 Pro name. And from the way that I see it, we have seen most Android manufacturers who are competing in these flagship level phones chase that $1,000 price point of the iPhone X. We can look at almost every major Android manufacturer from LG to Samsung to Google, and their phones have been getting more expensive, more closer to the price of a $1,000 phone, at least on the flagship level. So Apple makes Android at the flagship level chase these higher prices, and then they just come back in out of nowhere with a $699 mainstream iPhone, and Apple is able to deliver on features that most consumers want at a somewhat reasonable price point. And to top it all off, that strategy seems to be working out extremely well for Apple. They are selling a lot of iPhone 11s, and even on investor calls, it seems like Apple wasn't even expecting this amount of iPhone 11 demand. Considering on the last earnings, Apple beat their expectations by a pretty nice amount. But let me reiterate, the S20, it's not an overpriced phone. I actually think that for the amount of specs that Samsung is throwing in there, these phones make a lot of sense at that $1,000 price point. The S20 starts at $1,000 and comes jam-packed with features. You get a 120Hz refresh rate, 6.2-inch OLED display, 128 gigabytes of storage, 12 gigabytes of RAM, a 12-megapixel wide-angle and an ultra-wide-angle camera, and a 64-megapixel telephoto with the option to do 8K video recording on the telephoto lens. And 8K video recording is something that not even the camera I'm shooting this video on is capable of doing. Not to mention that this phone also comes with 5G connectivity. And if we look at the S20 Ultra, the $1,400 phone, that comes with an option of up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, a 108 megapixel wide angle camera, a 48 megapixel telephoto, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. And a time of flight sensor, something that's rumored to be on the iPhone 12. It's already available on these Samsung phones. These are serious specs and capabilities, but I feel like maybe there could have been a $700 to $800 model that got rid of some of these unnecessary specifications. Yes, some of these features are exciting, like 8K video recording. That honestly is a very cool feature, but it's not something that most consumers are going to be able to take advantage of yet. And on the regular S20 and S20 Plus, that's a feature you can only use when you're using the telephoto lens. And let me talk about probably the worst things that all of these phones could have, and that is 5G connectivity. Now, 5G at this point is a feature that very few people can actually take advantage of. At least in the US, 5G is not widely available, and it's a technology that might not even be truly ready for a couple of years now. I know at least in my area of New Jersey, which is a very populated area, I'm not like in the middle of nowhere somewhere. I live in a populated area that would be one of the quicker places to roll out 5G to, and there are no signs of any of the major cellular carriers bringing it over here quite yet. And while I'm certainly not making the decisions at Samsung, it certainly feels like consumers want some sort of compromised option. The iPhone 11 and the iPhone XR and the Galaxy S20 from last year are great examples of this. I really feel like Samsung could have released a model for, again, around $700 to $800 that didn't have all that RAM, that maybe couldn't shoot 8K video, and one that didn't have a 5G cellular chip, if that's adding on to the cost. I really don't know the cost of all these components, but those are the areas where I feel like they could have made some cuts, and they probably would have been able to churn out a more affordable option. Yes, Samsung does have cheaper phones in their lineup, cheaper than even the iPhone 11. Apple would never release phones like the A51 at $299, all the way down to the A10 at just $149. But again, I feel like even though Samsung has really cheap options and really expensive options, they fail to deliver on a strategy that has some sort of regular flagship, and they've completely abandoned the mid to high range. I really feel like Samsung this year is in for a rude awakening with this strategy. Even if these phones are really good, they are leaving out a big segment of the market that I don't think just dropping the price of the old S10 series will unfortunately resolve. Oh wait, I promised that I would be getting savage at the end for my friend Viper. Let me turn into Savage Greg for a moment. You've been warned. Sorry for my appearance, but Viper requested that I get savage. And here I am, Savage Greg, in the flesh. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S20 will be an utter and complete failure. They will not sell many phones. They're too highly priced to compete in this market of compromise. They are premium phones for a premium audience like myself, Savage Greg. And Savage Greg is a trendsetter who must buy the Galaxy Z Flip. So, I say unto you, Samsung, I say unto you, Discount DJ Co., I say to you that your marketing strategy, your pricing strategy, your utter lack of strategy is ill-equipped for this modern smartphone market, and I predict that you will not sell many phones. I predict that the iPhone 11 will eat your proverbial lunch. That is all from Savage Greg. I shall now return to my normal form. And yeah, the iPhone 11 is way more affordable than any of the S20 series that Samsung currently offers. That's gonna make for a very interesting year in smartphone sales. But anyway, that's just what I think about Samsung's pricing strategy with their S20 series this year. I would be really interested to hear in the comments below. Do you agree with me that Samsung should have offered a scaled down S20 at a more affordable price point? Also, if you like this video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, well, make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to support the channel out in any way, make sure you check out some of the links in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.